Welcome home, everyone. This is another edition of Native Land Pod. I am your host of this SoloPod. I'm Angela Rye. And today we are talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, a very sobering reality. Just 5 years ago, on January 6, 2021, the world that I knew it, the Capitol Hill that I worked on, that built my career professionally, was changed forever. On that day, Donald Trump denied election results that were very clear and encouraged protesters, an angry mob from all over the country that had descended onto the United States Capitol to challenge election results, to push back, telling them that, that the Democratic Party had stolen the election, that it had been rigged, that he never saw rigging like that before. He blamed tech companies and everyone else for an election outcome that was clear and decisive on the other side of a COVID-19 pandemic, on the other side of George Floyd's murder. And the people who always talked about backing the blue, the people who always talked about Blue Lives Matter, this is what they did instead.
Run over you! Do you think your little t-shirt guns are going to stop this crowd? No! We're going in that building! Take off your badges!
Yeah, so he said, do you think your pea shooter guns are going to stop this crowd? Meaning that they're willing to get shot to accomplish their goal, to go inside the building and carry out whatever violence they had in mind.
A lot of people who maybe didn't know the context of January 6th would ask, why were there no arrests?
Yeah.
Could you just explain that?
Sure. To make an arrest, they require usually at least 2 officers. And once you have someone under arrest, you are responsible for them. You are responsible for their health and their safety, and you are responsible for transporting them securely to jail, to where they would be processed. I mean, we couldn't guarantee our own health and safety, let alone those of anyone else. And if we were to try to make arrests, every arrest would require at least 1 officer leaving the scene, and we needed every single officer we had. So it was not feasible to make any arrests. It would be irresponsible. It would be ineffective to our own defense. It would be dangerous. It was just not possible. Yeah, there's so many of them and so few of us that once we lose the line, there's no way of getting it back. So they break through, and it devolves in the West Front. It devolves into a series of pitched battles in between individuals. And I can't commit to an attack on anyone, because once I do, 10 more people are going to come at me. This guy pushes me in the chest, pushing me back.
Get out of here! There's our house!
This champ over here thinks the Capitol belongs to him. And here I get pinned against this waist-high wall. You can hear it right here. They're screaming because the guy in the striated sweater thing is reaching underneath my visor and trying to gouge out my eyes.
Trying to gouge out his eyes, and that is Officer Danny Hodges, who is a Capitol Hill police officer, talking about his experience. And what NPR did is they showed footage from the body cam footage of officers and allowed them to respond to what was happening on January 6, 2021. Next, I want you to hear from, at the time, the commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, at this rally, which really ended up being a riot.
People would stand there at 9 o'clock in the evening and say, I want to thank you very much. And they go off to some other life. But I said, something's wrong here. Something's really wrong. Can't have happened. And we fight. We fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. Our exciting adventures and boldest endeavors have not yet begun. My fellow Americans, for our movement, for our children, and for our beloved country. And I say this, despite all that's happened, the best is yet to come. So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give, the Democrats are hopeless. They're never voting for anything. not even one vote. But we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones, because the strong ones don't need any of our help, we're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I want to thank you all. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all for being here. This is incredible. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So now I want to bring in someone who also was there that day on January 6, 2021. His name is Officer Harry Dunn. He's a Capitol Hill police officer, folks who became like family to me, and Harry is one of them. So let's bring him in. I want you all to hear from him. Hi, Harry. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, Angela. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for having me.
Happy New Year. I know you are running all over the place today, having to relive this really awful experience, but I do think it's important for those people who are at home, Harry, who may have never set foot on Capitol grounds, to talk about what happened that day and what your experience was. We know when Donald Trump came in this term, he pardoned more than 1,600 people who were affiliated with the violence and the havoc that was wreaked on Capitol Hill. So can you talk a little bit about your experience and what you saw that day?
Sure. One thing that you just said actually really stood out to me just that quickly. People that have never stood foot on Capitol ground or the Capitol, they were under attack that day, whether you stepped there or not, because your representatives were under attack. The people that represent you in the communities, wherever you're listening to the show from, they wanted to overturn your vote or not even count your vote. They wanted to install Donald Trump to be president again when he lost an election, but there was no evidence of that to the contrary to say that he didn't lose it. But I say this often. We don't need people to tell us what happened on January 6th. You know, I've been doing it because clearly there's a battle going on right now. People conflating, not even conflating, just flat out lying about what happened on that day versus what happened. We don't need people to tell us. Like, we saw the footage that you just played. Just press play. You don't need anybody to analyze that footage. But it's unfortunate that we have to push back and say, yes, this really happened. And it was 100 times worse than what the footage actually shows. There's nobody in their right mind watches that footage and say, oh, wow, that's an acceptable thing to do. Like, if somebody is thinking that, like, they need to stay 100 miles from me, like, this isn't cool. But these people, these terrorists, these thugs, insurrectionists who attacked me and my coworkers and everybody else listening, like, this was an attack on American principles, American democracy, and free and fair elections, all because of one man. Donald Trump solely could have prevented January 6th. If Donald Trump didn't tell his rioters to go to the Capitol, they wouldn't have been there. They were emboldened. The most powerful person in arguably the world told them to go to the Capitol. Now, listen, when my mom tell me to do something, I don't care who tell me to the contrary. My mama said, do it, I'm gonna do it. Imagine the most powerful person in the world giving you marching orders. You're like, oh, okay, we can do this. So that's where the audacity came from of these individuals feeling they had the right to do what they were doing. They thought that they were right. Now, they're stupid for thinking that, but that goes to the mindset of the people that were there and the power and the hold that Donald Trump has over them.
Well, what's scary now, Officer Dunn, is, you know, we all know what happened, but if you go to official government websites now, the way that they are framing January 6th is vastly different than what we are seeing with our own two eyes. So I do think it's important for people to understand when you say, me and my colleagues were attacked. What was that experience? What was your role? Where were you on January 6th?
Sure. So I fortunately, I was blessed. I didn't suffered a lot of the physical attacks that a lot of my coworkers did. I was on an Overwatch post. I had a long rifle attached to me, and I was kind of like Overwatch. And I made the conscious decision not to go down in the crowd because that weapon's going to get snatched from me, and you're just going to be outnumbered. Like, one person, you know, I feel like I could throw hands a little bit. You know, one person going in there is not going to make a big difference when you got all those people down there. We needed help from the National Guard. We needed help. Like, people ask, well, how did the rioters finally get under control? It wasn't no secret code that we use or some magic word. We got help. Backup arrived. The National Guard showed up. Law enforcement showed up from all other precincts and jurisdictions across from the East Coast, from New Jersey, Virginia, New York. There were officers all of North Carolina. People came to help. And that's how we finally got the crowds under control. But these people were beating officers, calling us traitors, and talking about we can do this the hard way, the easy way, or the hard way. We don't want to hurt you, but we will. These are quotes from them. Stand with us. They're telling, stand with us. We're here to stop the steal. These are quotes from that day.
When you think about how long it took, one of the things that we hear often from members of the Democratic Party is that Donald Trump refused to send in the National Guard. If you can recount at that time, like how long you remember it taking, how long was it before the National Guard arrived?
Well, time is a blur. Time is a blur that day. So I don't have any, at least in that moment, obviously in the aftermath and being able to see for 189 or whatever the exact number was, we were able to see 3+ hours. But in that moment, I didn't know whether it was 10 minutes or 4 hours. I didn't know. Only thing we were focused on is survival. As a police officer, your goal at the end of the day is to go home. Some people did not go home at the end of their shift that day. And we were all focused, a man, woman, black, white, getting each other home to their loved ones and to their families.
And that, I think, is the part too, to me, and maybe this is my bias, so I'll acknowledge that the Capitol Hill Police is built different to me, Officer Dunn.
Yeah.
Like, these are the people who, when we worked super late at night, I'm walking around the building like Longworth or Rayburn with no shoes on because my feet are done. You know, these are the people who, when I could finally put those shoes back on, they would walk us to our cars. They're asking about our families. Some of them met my parents, you know, the ones that are checking you and screening you when you first get in. How's your mom doing? How's your dad doing?
Yeah.
Like, they're different. It's not like a traditional police force. So it felt like family. So now there are some, like the guy, I cannot think of this officer's name, but you probably know who I'm talking about. Behind Cannon, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm not shaming, but he's that chubbier white guy, older, and he's always yelling at people, even in the crosswalk. I don't even know if he's still there, but like,
it's a few of them. There's a few of them
right? But they're the exception and not the norm. And so what I'm curious about is like what you all were thinking, because even though we weren't your colleagues in uniform, we were your colleagues too. We're your extended family too.
Yeah.
What were some of the thoughts you had about folks you really cared about and if they were okay?
Keeping them safe. And if you look, the number one goal of the Capitol Police is to create a safe environment so Congress can fulfill their constitutional obligations. That's literally the mission statement of Capitol Police. And I would like to say at the end of the day, that mission was upheld. Now, it took a hell of a detour. You know, it took a moment, but Congress went back and certified the election in the wee hours of early in the morning. So that's one of the things that make me proud. I remember seeing, I never, it was an officer in the midst of the chaos, and this image always stands in my head, was carrying what appeared to be a staff member, carrying them running through the crypt as rioters were approaching. I don't know if the person was hurt. I don't even know who the officer was. I just saw somebody, and they were carrying that person like a football, and they would just keep these people safe. And not one member got hurt, not one staffer got hurt, not even a hair on their head was harmed. And I take very pride in that. And like you said, Capitol Police are different than your normal police force, and I just take pride in that.
Well, I thank you so much, Officer Dunn, for your time. I know that you're going to continue to do this work. What's the thing that you would tell people at home to do to make sure that, one, we remember what happened and we prevent what happens going forward? What would you tell us to do?
Stay engaged. Simple. It's simple, right? But it's so easy to check out. Listen, a lot of people, I think when somebody tells you, hey, everything's going to be all right, whether it's you're going through a breakup or whether you're dealing with hey, it's going to be okay. I don't know. That's the biggest gaslighting phrase I've ever heard in my life. It's going to be okay. We don't know. I don't know if we're going to survive these next 3 years coming up with the Trump administration. I don't know. However, I do know if we don't show up, if we just roll over and accept it, then we absolutely will not survive it. But showing up gives us a fighting chance. So stay engaged, stay involved, stay in the game. Do whatever you can do. Whether it's calling, educating a friend, registering somebody to vote, voting. It's just something. You have to do something to stay engaged and stay involved, because you don't want to just say, damn, if I shoulda, coulda, woulda, do X, Y, and Z. So
Well, I'm so grateful that you stay engaged. Thank you so much for practicing what you preach, for joining me. And please
Thank
come back
you.
soon, Officer Dunn.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Likewise. Well, y'all, we are just getting started into this show. Officer Dunn is tremendous, so brave for sharing his story consistently on and off air, making sure that we know to stay engaged. And on that, I think in order to stay engaged, we have to understand the facts. So I want to take us back into January 6, 2021. And what I want to do first, actually, is bring in the clip that I recorded. It was the Instagram Live right when all this was going on. And I'll tell you, as I was recording this particular clip, I was thinking about all of my Hill family. I was calling my members and telling them to please not move from where they were, to stay locked in their offices in case they thought they could move around. I remember Congresswoman Joyce Beatty was having a meeting, organizing meeting for the Congressional Black Caucus as she began her tenure. I asked her to please not leave her office. I called Congressman Carson and Congressman Thompson. I was texting, and Congressman Cleaver, asking them where they were. In one particular moment, we have a Congressional Black Caucus family thread, and that is with my former team. And Brandon and Stephanie were already off the Hill, as was I, but our sister, Latrice Powell, was still there, and she worked for Nancy Pelosi, and we saw that Nancy Pelosi was a prime target. The Republican Party has long made Nancy Pelosi a boogeyman. And so we began to think about Treese. And so we asked Treese where she was, and we didn't hear from Latrice for 3 hours. And I was so scared. In the midst of that, I recorded this video. I'm kind of in shock. I'm not in shock that this is happening. I'm not in shock that the Capitol Hill police, not all of them, because there are some great officers, but there are definitely some who were taking selfies with protesters, with terrorists, and there were those who helped to move the gates. And so when I think about Congressman Cleaver or Congressman Carson or Congressman Jeffries or Congresswoman Omar or Congresswoman Presley or Congressmember Bass or the new chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, I'm thinking about people who are my family members, Congressman G.K. Butterfield, who are in these buildings on the House floor to do the people's business. You know, staffers who are working to ensure that the whole of America is good, whether you voted for their bosses or not, right? The fact of the matter is, this is not a game. It's never been a game. It was not a game when Donald Trump was campaigning off this bullshit in 2016. It wasn't a game when I was on CNN arguing with people who did not have the credibility to even be sitting opposite of me. This has never been a joke. It's never been about a rating. This has never been about, you know, a divided America and we tap into it and study the impact. This was always going to be the consequence of giving airtime on social media, on cable news, on radio to domestic terrorists. This was always going to be the consequence of this. And so what we really have to imagine is how long we are going to continue to be terrorized, because that's what's been going on since 1492. It's not a surprise that white people who are threatened, that their power is gone, will behave this way. It's not surprising to any of us because it happens in our neighborhoods. It happens every time someone in our family is pulled over by a police officer. This is what we are telling you. This is what we've been saying. So when you talk to me about how defund the police is terrorism, when you talk to me and you tell me how Black Lives Matter is terrorism, I don't want you to say shit else to me about that because it's not real. The terrorists are the folks who are on my TV right now, making it so members of Congress who I love, and even those who I don't, are stuck in their offices, stuck together in undisclosed locations, afraid and really ready to go home, but don't know where all the protesters may be. The folks who are concerned that there might be another explosive device in the Capitol. Well, that cut off. But the bottom line is we're talking about what domestic terrorism looks like. And I think that what we are very clear about, no matter how they try to whitewash, pun intended, history, it was a terrorist attack on Capitol Hill that day. And it wasn't a foreign terrorist attack on Capitol Hill that day. It was a domestic terrorist attack encouraged, incited by the commander in chief at that time. So I want to remind you again with your own two eyes of what that terrorist attack looks like. Let's roll the clip.
Go back inside. You want to go back inside? Officer down! Get him up! We need EMTs now! South
Now he's going for medicals at South Door. We can take him up there.
Move your hands. You lifting him. You're lifting him, huh? Take the leg. Take the leg. Come on, get a leg. I got it. It's my partner. Come on. Turn right. This way. Where are we going? To South Door. Mike, stay in there, buddy. Mike, it's Jimmy. I'm here. Mike. Hey, take his fucking vest off. Maybe he's having trouble breathing. Hold on. Take his vest off. Mike, I'm here for you, buddy. Come on, dude.
Take him out of falls. He's good.
Just stand by. Watch out. For now, wake up, brother. Talk to me, man.
Come on, Mike. Come on, buddy. We're going duck hunting soon.
For now. You all right, brother?
Can you take that door back?
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did. We took the fucking door back. They're all outside.
Do you even remember saying that?
No. No. I mean, it's like, in character.
Mm-hmm.
I was always like a pretty mission-focused cop, and that was, that was a goal. Plus, like, I mean, shit, I guess, like, subconsciously I was thinking if I just went through all of that and we lost the goddamn door, fuck.
That was former Officer Michael Fanone, who suffered a mild heart attack in that clip. That's what was happening. And so I think it's important as people try to whitewash history and claim that it was patriots that descended down on the Capitol, that we remember the officers like Michael Fanone who were standing, trying to guard and protect democracy, literally, with their own lives on the line. And there's one other that I think is important to hear from as we talk about what happened that day, who had what constitutional requirement to fulfill. One of those people was Mike Pence, whose memory was jogged right in time to run for president in 2024. And in that presidential announcement, he had this to say.
It begins with a promise that I made to the American people and to Almighty God. And it ends with different visions for the future of our nation and our party. January 6th was a tragic day in the life of our nation. But thanks to the courage of law enforcement, the violence was quelled, and we reconvened the Congress the very same day to complete the work of the American people under the Constitution of the United States. As I've said many times, on that fateful day, President Trump's words were reckless. They endangered my family and everyone at the Capitol. But the American people deserve to know that on that day, President Trump also demanded that I choose between him and the Constitution. Now voters will be faced with the same choice. I chose the Constitution, and I always will. My former running mate continues to insist that I had the right to overturn the election. But President Trump was wrong then, and he's wrong now. I will always believe, by God's grace, I did my duty that day. I kept my oath to ensure the peaceful transfer of power under the Constitution of the United States of America.
Vice President Mike Pence was loud then in 2024, preparing to run for president, but he's quiet now. He's quiet in the face of governmental websites being changed to tell a completely different story, despite the fact that Mike Pence himself, his name plastered across hanging gallows with a noose attached, with threats being experienced, people literally going throughout the Capitol to hunt him down. And while they were doing that, moderately encouraged by Donald Trump, who called Mike Pence a coward, who urged him to do the right thing, which was opposite of Spike Lee's do the right thing and actually the very wrong thing. This is the same man who, in his silence, I don't know if he ever told Donald Trump that he should call in the National Guard. But what we know is it took the National Guard a long time to get there, with Mike Pence's life on the line, Nancy Pelosi's, Hakeem Jeffries, Jim Clyburn's, Benny Gordon Thompson, everybody's life on the line. And not to forget all of the many staffers. And if you think they were going to be checking cards for who was a Democrat or a Republican, you're wrong. Everybody's life was on the line that day. And that is why I cannot understand why, on a bipartisan level, there wasn't an all-out effort to ensure that this man who put democracy on the line, who demonstrated just how fragile it was to this country, wasn't challenged in a more forceful way, except for when greed gets in the way. But nonetheless, the National Guard was hours late to show up. And here's what this gentleman had to say about that.
Can tell you with absolute certainty is that we had a force equipped and ready to respond. And despite the inaccuracies of the DOD-IG report, we had a plan and would have liked the opportunity to try. Instead, we waited for hours, less than 2 miles east of the Capitol building, absolutely frustrated, knowing our Capitol had been breached and not understanding why we had not received the authorization to respond. I cannot tell you the number of times someone has asked me, "Where were you? Where was the National Guard? Or how can you call yourselves Capitol Guardians?" There is no easy response to those questions, and the truth is, we were there and we were ready. We just weren't authorized to respond, and that is difficult to explain. The soldiers and airmen of the DC National Guard deserve better.
And we all deserve better. And I think that the reality of it is we have found out since then, this past full year, 2025, that Donald Trump knows exactly how to call on the National Guard. He knows how to call on the National Guard for everything that does not matter. But he does not know, or did not know, or pretended not to know how to call on the National Guard when it mattered most. The people who he has to work with day in and day out to sign sign bills into law, he turned a blind eye to them. The staffers that work tirelessly to ensure that the American people are protected and covered and policy is fought for, whether you agree with the solutions or not. He turned a blind eye to all of them. But the National Guard, he can call the National Guard into cities over faux crime. He can call the National Guard into cities when he thinks that immigrants are the real problem. He can call in the National Guard for everything and anything other than to protect the Capitol, to allow them to fulfill their duty of being Capitol guardians. And despite of all of that recklessness, the wanton disregard for life, the irresponsibility that your president had that day, they're rewriting the history. And we will not allow them to do that. 5 years later, it was still one of the worst terrorist attacks domestically on our soil. And we should never, never veer from that truth. I just want to take this moment to shout out someone who at the time was a member of Congress representing Delaware, a House member representing Delaware. And now she is a member of Congress, but as the first Black woman senator. Things could have gone very differently for Lisa Blunt Rochester on January 6, 2021. But she chose to call on a higher power. She chose to summon the heavens and pray. And I think in moments like these, when we feel like things are completely beyond our control, it is our obligation to call on something bigger, someone bigger than ourselves, because it's like, what else can you do when you can literally hear bullets ringing out in this video that's going to play next? She got on her knees and she called out to God.
From inside the House earlier. So where this is being shot from is actually the side of the House chamber where the First Lady normally sits.
Yes, correct.
During a State of the Union. There you can see members of Congress. That's Pramila Jayapal.
Pramila Jayapal from Washington, correct.
Remember, there you go. And you can,
There's the gunshots.
Let's listen. That's a police officer there, obviously.
Capitol Police officer, yep.
And that woman there is a member of Congress. I couldn't quite make out who exactly.
She appears to be making a video or a statement because she's giving somewhat of a speech. And praying.
She's praying. She is praying.
And there were a lot of prayers said today, not only on Capitol Hill, but across America for the state of our...
And that...
Everybody stay down, shouts a member of Congress inside the hallowed halls of our United States Congress.
And that's not a shower cap. That's the kind of mask
that
are under the seats.
Protective, yes.
In the event of some kind of chemical agent being released in the chamber. So remember, we reported earlier that members had been instructed to use the gas masks under their seats and have them ready, or to shelter under their chairs. And this is the video showing that, in fact, many did do that.
Whew. Well,
the House.
This is why it is important to recall history correctly. It is important to recall history with people who were actually there, who know what happened, who experienced it firsthand, whose responsibility it was to be guardians of the Capitol. I want to point out to you that that is what happened on January 6, 2021. And when Donald Trump was sworn in last year on Martin Luther King Day, one of his first acts was to pardon the 1,600 men and women and people who were involved in that terrorist attack on the Capitol building. That insurrection. He pardoned 1,600 people, and since then, several of them have been rearrested. 33, at least 33, who were pardoned have now been convicted of or charged with or arrested for additional crimes since that violent attack on the Capitol. This is coming from a report from Where Are They Now? The perpetrators of January 6th and the defenders of democracy who stopped them, from the House Committee on the Judiciary, led by Congressman Jamie Raskin. Some of the crimes that the rioters were convicted of or have been charged with or arrested for include child sexual assault, production of child pornography, possession of child pornography, rape, conspiracy to commit murder of Federal Bureau of Investigation agents, kidnapping, sexual assault, aggravated robbery, reckless homicide, driving under the influence causing death, illegal possession of firearms, domestic violence by strangulation, burglary, vandalism, grand theft, stalking, violation of protective orders, threatening public officials, and drug trafficking. If you're wondering why there's this long list of felonious activity from insurrectionists, I'd invite you to look at your president, who has also had a laundry list of felonies that he's either been charged with, accused of, indicted for, or investigated about. With that, y'all, welcome home.
Nobody knows the troubles I've seen,